I never imagined a chance encounter with a millionaire would lead to a life-changing twist. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air crackled with tension, heavy and thick, like the storm about to break. I was standing there, in that crowded cafe, hands trembling around a chipped mug. My heart raced. The smell of burnt coffee mixed with the sweet scent of fresh pastries filled my senses, yet all I could focus on was the overwhelming weight in my chest. He walked in, tall and enigmatic, with an aura that seemed to dim the fluorescent lights overhead. I could feel the energy shift, whispers cascading through the room. Who was this man? I felt it deep in my bones something wasn't right. The way he moved, with purpose and uncertainty, made my stomach twist. My mind raced through possibilities. Was he a businessman? A con artist? Or something else entirely? His eyes locked onto mine. They were a piercing blue, shimmering like the ocean, swirling with secrets. I looked away, ashamed of the curiosity bubbling inside me. I couldn't let myself get drawn in. Not again. My heart already bore the scars of broken trust. He turned to the barista, but I caught sight of a bracelet on his wrist, intricate, glowing with an otherworldly light. It looked almost like it belonged to another time, another place. Was it a family heirloom or a prize from some exotic venture? I swallowed hard, my throat dry. The cafe buzzed around us, conversations bubbling high and low, yet there was a profound silence surrounding him and a bubble that felt electric. I barely heard the words all around me. My thoughts drifted into a whirlwind. I saw the faces of my family flash in my mind. My brother, Jake, always dreaming big, wanting adventure beyond our small town. My mother, who worked tirelessly at the diner, her hands always worn and tired. And my father, lost to the shadows of his own life, never able to grasp something as simple as hope. Did I really want to pull them into this unfamiliar world, one where fortunes bloomed and fell like autumn leaves? Just as I pondered this, the millionaire turned. Our eyes met again, and there was something haunting in his gaze, a flicker of desperation and a plea wrapped in mystery. And then he took a step towards me. My breath hitched. What was he going to say? Was he going to curse my name or offer me a golden opportunity? I felt my heart pounding, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. Fear and hope battled inside me. He opened his mouth, but the sound was drowned out by laughter from a nearby table. The moment slipped away, and I was left standing there, frozen, as the ordinary world resumed around me. He turned again, that haunting look still dancing in his eyes, and walked out of the cafe. Just like that, he was gone, and there I stood, staring at the door, my heart heavy with 1,000 questions. What was that feeling? Did I just let my chance slip away? Was I crazy for wanting more? In that instant, everything felt impossible. All I wanted was to figure it out, to grasp the thread of fate that connected us. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The cafe's door swung shut behind him, and I was engulfed by the gray reality settling around me. The chatter of customers no longer sounded like a melody but a cacophony, jarring against the muted rhythm of my racing heart. I took a deep breath, but the weight on my chest felt more like a stone than anything light enough to escape through my lungs. Are you okay? A soft voice broke through my haze. It was Amelia, the barista, with her bright smile and the warmth of her kind spirit. She leaned against the counter, wiping her hands on her apron, concern etching lines on her forehead. You looked a little lost. I forced a smile, gratitude mixing with turmoil in my heart. I'm fine. Just thinking. About him? She asked, nodding toward the door. I shrugged, unsure how to articulate the whirlwind of emotions surging within me. The moment he had stepped through the archway of that cafe, it had felt like a fragile dream, one I both wanted to chase and feared to touch. Sometimes, the people who leave a mark are not those we expect, she said softly, her voice cutting through my spiraled thoughts. Just remember, not every chance meeting brings clarity. Sometimes, they only add layers to our questions. Her words wrapped around me like a warm blanket, the familiar scent of coffee clinging to her like a home I wished to return to. It felt silly, but in that moment of connection, I found a sliver of comfort. As the days slipped by, I couldn't shake my thoughts of him. Each time I entered the cafe, I half expected him to reappear, to drape my life in a glittering thread of possibility. But only the moments I shared with the regular patrons filled the spaces he had brushed through. Yet, the mystery woven into his absence gnawed at me, turning my world inside out. One stormy evening, as the first drops of rain danced against the pavement, I found myself at the cafe again, watching raindrops race down the window. The sky was a dreary canvas, and my heart weighed heavily with the uncertainty of my life. My father had fallen ill, and my mother's already fragile resolve was cracking under the pressure of endless bills and late-night exhaustion. I felt trapped, drowning in responsibilities while dreams faded like shadows. That's when I heard the unmistakable sound of that deep, rich voice slicing through the storm. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" I turned, and there he was, the millionaire, his presence illuminating the dim cafe like a beacon in the night. An inexplicable pull tightened the space between us. My heart raced dangerously as I searched his face for answers, yet all I found were more questions. "No, please," I managed to say, gesturing to the empty seat across from me. "Thank you," he said, and for a brief moment, time paused, infectious warmth filling the space between us. But then reality crashed back. I could feel my pulse quickening, every beat echoing in the stillness of the cafe. "Are you okay?" he asked, his piercing blue eyes searching mine. The weight of his gaze was undeniable, stirring something in the depths of my soul. I stumbled over my words, the truth heavy on my tongue. "It's just a lot going on right now." He nodded, a flicker of understanding in his gaze. "Life has a way of throwing unexpected challenges our way." I frowned, caught between relief and anxiety. "And how do you cope with it?" His eyes turned distant for a moment, as if he were untangling a memory wrapped in shadows. "I take it one day at a time. Sometimes all you need is a little hope," he said softly, and I couldn't tell if he was speaking to me or to himself. Just then, the tension in the air was pierced by the jarring sound of a phone ringing, and he reached into the pocket of his blazer. The smile that had filled his face dropped like a curtain as he read the screen. My stomach dropped too, sensing the change in him, the concern weighing heavier than before. "I am sorry. I need to take this." His voice faded as he moved to a corner, leaving me grappling with emotions I had yet to fully understand. I watched him, losing myself in the soft outlines of his form. This man, burdened by his life despite the luxury shimmering around him, perhaps didn't have the answers either. Life was a curious, tangled web of uncertainties for both of us. When he returned, his expression was grave, the shadows deepened beneath his eyes. "I have to go," he muttered, his voice strained. "Wait." I reached out, desperation clawing at me for one more moment, one more chance to bridge this gap growing between us. Can we talk again? About hope?" He hesitated, his internal battle thunderous in the silence. "He'll be back tomorrow," he finally said, a promise wrapped in unspoken fear. Before I could respond, he turned and disappeared into the storm outside. I was left alone, the quiet cafe whispering around me, the rain cascading like a torrent against the window. With each heartbeat, a newfound sense of uncertainty washed over me. Tomorrow seemed both a promise and a ticking clock. Would he return? Would we stand at the crossroads of dreams and reality once more? Or was this the last sliver of hope I would grasp before it fled me forever? My thoughts tangled, wrapping tight around the swelling dread in my heart, leaving me perched on the unsettling edge of what might come next: a reunion, or a Dipperturian invitation, or a goodbye. The rain poured relentlessly against the windows of the cafe, 1,000 tiny drummers tapping out a frantic rhythm that pulsed in time with my racing heart. I sat at my usual table, the one tucked in the corner, where I could see every face that entered the place. But today, it wasn't the warm scent of freshly brewed coffee or the laughter of patrons that kept me anchored. It was the uncertainty hanging in the air, thick and suffocating. I peered outside, searching the silhouettes that moved past the frosted glass. The world felt like a distant echo, and I realized I was holding my breath, waiting for him, the millionaire with the soul-searching eyes. Each minute stretched like a fragile thread, fraying at the edges with my mounting anxiety. Would he come back? Would I get the chance to hear more of his thoughts on hope, on dreams? Suddenly, the bell above the cafe door chimed, slicing through my reverie. I looked up, heart in my throat only to feel the weight of disappointment when I saw it was just a family, laughing as they entered, shaking the rain from their umbrellas. I closed my eyes, fighting against the tide of despair swelling inside me. "Hey!" Amelia's voice jolted me from my self-imposed solitude. She slid a steaming cup of mocha in front of me with a warm smile. "You look like you could use a little pick-me-up." "Thanks," I murmured, forcing a smile before taking a sip. The rich, warm taste brought with it a fleeting sense of comfort, yet it felt hollow against the reality gnawing at me. Is it him again?" she asked gently, leaning on the counter, her intuition honed after watching me for weeks now. I nodded, unable to articulate the whirlwind of emotions coiling inside. "I thought today would be different. And my father, he's not getting better. Oh, sweetheart." Her eyes softened, and she leaned closer. "You know you don't have to shoulder everything alone. Let us help you." Before I could respond, the clattering of the door opened once more, and it happened the very moment I had both longed for and feared. He stepped over the threshold, clothes dampened by the rain, yet somehow looking immaculate, exuding an aura of confidence paired with the stark lines of exhaustion on his face. Time stilled as our gazes locked across the bustling cafe. An unspoken connection felt palpable, like a string tethering us together, longing for the other's touch. But the moment slipped, and a small frown creased his brow as he scanned the room. With each step he took toward me, the air thickened. "Hey," he breathed, taking the seat across from me. I could see the worry etched into his features, his light momentarily dimmed, but the fire of vulnerability crackling beneath the surface. "Are you okay?" I asked, echoing the question he had posed to me yesterday. He chuckled softly, though the sound held no warmth. "I'm just a mess. Family crises, business pressures. Sometimes it feels like a storm I can't outrun." My heart sank, realizing that in this moment, we were both caught in opposing tempests. "You're not alone in that," I managed, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "I think we're all just trying to stay afloat, aren't we?" His gaze softened as I spoke, a flicker of understanding passing between us. "Maybe it's all we can do." As he leaned forward, the binding strands of our lives felt almost tangible, capturing fragments of dreams still flickering alive within the chaos. Just then, a sudden interruption broke the momentum. Commotion erupted at the cafe entrance. An elderly woman, frail and shaking, entered, her soaked umbrella flipping inside out. I quickly rose from my chair, pulling my compassionate instinct into motion. "Ma'am, let me help you." I rushed to her side, offering her my warmth, my care as she stumbled forward. "Oh dear, I thought I'd never escape that downpour." She sighed, relief washing over her features as I guided her to a dry table. "I am so glad you made it," I said, bringing her a towel from behind the counter. As she sat, she grasped my hands, her bony fingers trembling with an electric warmth. "You're a kind soul, child," she said with a raspy smile. "Always remember that sometimes, kindness is the only light that cuts through the darkness." I nodded, drawing strength from her words, and glanced back toward the table only to discover the millionaire's seat now empty. My heart plummeted. "Where did he go?" I asked Amelia, who had borne witness to both the woman's entrance and my connection with him. "I am not sure. He seemed overwhelmed, perhaps stepped outside for a breather." An ice-cold wave of dread crashed over me, merging with the uncertainty swirling within. I dashed back to the door, peering outside into the relentless rain. The frigid air nipped at my skin. He stood at the edge of the cafe, shoulders hunched and phone against his ear. His expression was set in concentration, a stark contrast to the warmth he had shared moments ago. I strained to hear snippets of his conversation, but the words were lost amidst the forgotten storm. Just then, the old woman's voice called me back. "Everyone needs a little gentle nudge sometimes. Perhaps you should take a chance." A moment of conflict played across my features, but her hopeful gaze anchored me. Maybe there was a possibility here, a sliver of chance waiting on the other side of fear. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the world settle on my shoulders as I rounded the corner, toward the fading figure of the man who had cast a flicker of light into my life. "Hey," I called out, intending to bridge the gap, to grasp this thread of hope before it dissipated into the storm. But as he turned to me, a turbulent emotion crossed his face, one that knocked the air from my lungs. A look of horror. "Go back inside," he shouted, his voice laced with urgency. The sudden shift in his demeanor sent a jolt through me as I stood frozen in my place, mere feet away from the man I had desperately sought. "Why? What's wrong?" I asked, despair creeping in, thudding against my heart. But before he could answer, a deafening roar echoed above us. The sky cracked open, and a flash of blinding light illuminated the street. A surge of wind knocked me back, spinning my world into chaos as whispering shadows danced around us both. In that fleeting moment, a realization struck me with the force of a churning tempest. This encounter was about to change everything. The ground quaked beneath me, and the world felt as if it were being swept away in a violent tide, leaving only questions in its wake. I took a step back, the cold rain smacking against my skin, mingling with the adrenaline coursing through me. My heart raced as I clutched the doorframe, breathless, trying to comprehend the urgency in his voice. His eyes darted past me, a mixture of fear and something else I couldn't decipher. "Please, just go inside," he implored, desperation slicing through the storm's din. I hesitated for a fraction of a second, caught in a web of confusion and concern. What could be so dangerous? "What's going on?" I pressed, but his intense gaze told me everything. He was protecting something far more fragile than our unformed connection. A peal of thunder crashed overhead. A flash of light flickered in the distance. I watched the streetlights sputter and blink, silhouetting him in stark relief. His presence was a potent mix of strength and vulnerability, an uncharacteristic wave of urgency that drew me closer. "Just trust me," he shouted, barely audible over the brewing storm. "I can't lose you too." His words sliced deep, and amidst all the noise, something primal within me snapped into focus. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the connection we had forged and the realities we both faced. I wanted to know what lay behind those soul-searching eyes, what demons haunted him like ghosts in the night. But before I could articulate my thoughts, the world trembled once more. The air thickened, charged with an energy I couldn't name. I could sense a potential storm gathering, even harsher than the rain around us. And yet, he remained still, body taut and waiting, like a bowstring pulled back, ready to unleash untold truths. Suddenly, a girl's voice called out nearby, "Please help." It was the same voice that had cut through the cafe earlier, full of desperate hope. The old woman I had offered kindness to had ventured outside, and now she stood a few paces from us, soaked to the bone, struggling against the strong gusts that whipped past her. Panic ignited within me. "We can't leave her," I shouted, my instincts swirling in a disorienting dance between compassion and caution. But the billionaire shook his head vigorously. "No, it's not safe," he pleaded, urgency lining the edges of his words. I could see his internal battle, a juxtaposition of wanting to save and wanting to protect, and in that moment, I understood that both choices came with heavy consequences. Just then, the rain intensified, becoming a torrential downpour as though the sky itself was mourning. I felt the fortress of courage I had built around my heart beginning to crumble, with each heartbeat urging me to make a choice: to run toward safety or toward the vulnerable souls in need. I stood torn between two worlds. A glimmering streak of lightning lit up the dark sky, illuminating the shape of something dark and foreboding skimming across the street. I barely had the chance to register what it was when an ominous roar broke through the heavens, causing the ground beneath us to quake. The wealthy man's expression twisted into one of horror. No, he muttered, stumbling backward as if he had seen a ghost. His eyes widened in recognition, and I could feel the sheer terror radiating off of him, followed by the chilling realization settling into the marrow of my bones. "Get back," he yelled again, pushing me away from the doorway. "Get inside." But I couldn't move. I was frozen, entranced by the unfolding chaos, the shadows playing tricks upon my mind. All I could think of was how quickly things were spiraling out of control. Before I could process what he meant, my vision was obscured by sudden darkness. When I finally regained my bearings, a figure loomed before me. Was the old woman again, struggling against a sudden gust. She slipped, her frail body crumpling down as a roar of wind buried the sound of my heartbeat. My world narrowed to just her, and I lunged forward instinctively, wrapping my arms around her. "Hold on," I shouted as I strained against the wind, feeling its fierce hold on reality tighten like a vice. But in the midst of the chaos, I felt a hand on my shoulder, his grip, grounded and strong. "You can't help her if you're swept away," he urged, his voice steady against the storm. "They'll get her. Just trust me." With a deep inhale, I stepped back, allowing him to draw closer. The light from the cafe illuminated his face, revealing deep lines of determination etched across his brow. He was not just an enigmatic figure. In that fleeting moment, he turned into a warrior prepared to fight against the encroaching shadows that I in a seamless motion. He bounded toward the old woman, and I watched as he hoisted her to her feet, steadying her against the relentless wind. My heart ached with admiration, and yet a raw fear clutched at me. We were dancing on the edge of a cliff, teetering between safety and peril. Just then, a sudden crack sliced through the air, another flash of blinding light. My mind raced with questions. What was happening? Why did this feel planned? A nagging thought flickered in the back of my mind, an unsettling sensation that perhaps this storm wasn't just a random occurrence, but something linked to the man standing defiantly against the tempest, holding on to the woman like a lifeline. The moment hung in the air, taut with uncertainty, and then the sky unleashed another peal of thunder, shaking the ground as rain fell like daggers. We needed to get inside, yet the storm seemed to be more than just elements. It felt as if something much darker was brewing just beyond the horizon. I gripped the edge of the doorway, my heart pounding as I struggled to find my grounding. His eyes darted back to me, filled with unspoken words, secrets just out of reach. In that chaotic moment, the distance between us felt insurmountable. Yet, there was no going back now. But as he helped the elderly woman into shelter, I realized my hope was slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. Questions consumed me. Who was he really? What past haunted him? And what was the force that connected the unpredictability of our lives? Would I still hear the answers I sought before the storm swept it all away? And just as I felt courage returning to me, an uncomfortable truth dawned. I might not be ready for the revelations that lay ahead. Yet beneath the fear was an undeniable spark, one that lingered between us even as the chaos raged on, an uncharted storm threatening to change everything once and for all. The cafe was filled with the chaotic rhythm of droplets hammering against the windows, echoing the turmoil stirring within me. I stood, heart racing, as the tempest outside raged on, blurring the outlines of the world I once knew. The old woman now safe inside, her frail hands trembling not just from the cold, but from a deeper fear that resonated in my chest. "Why did you come out?" I heard the billionaire's voice rise above the sound of the storm, laced with a mix of concern and frustration. His body was tense, shoulders rigid like a coiled spring, trembling between protectiveness and exasperation. "I couldn't just sit inside while you were out there," the old woman replied, her voice soft yet resolute. I thought someone might need help." A flicker of sympathy ignited within me. She had not been alone in her determination. Watching their exchange, I understood now. This man, who appeared so untouchable, was more than just a billionaire. He was a protector, haunted by scars of a past that he could not shake off, and she was a reminder of the world he had tried to escape. It was an ethereal connection I could barely comprehend, as if the storm itself had summoned us to confront our choices. "That I should have stopped you," he murmured, his jaw tight, frustration dissipating into a vulnerable remorse. "I've tried to build walls around my life, but they come crashing down the moment I see someone in need." He turned abruptly and ran a hand through his dark hair, visibly struggling against the anguish that boiled beneath the surface. The rain streamed down the glass, blurring the outside world much like my own body, which felt awash with uncertainty. I caught the old woman's gaze, and in her tired eyes, I saw a recognition of my own fears, how the desire to save others often left us exposed, battling unseen demons in the process. "Why are you both so worried?" she asked, her frail voice breaking the tension in the room. "A storm can't take what's meant to stay." Her words lingered in the air, carving out a fragile space for hope amidst the chaos. I took a step closer to the billionaire, who stood at the edge of the cafe, colored by shadows of internal struggle. I wanted to reach out, to connect the fragments of our worlds as the rain painted the windows like an impressionist canvas of grief and longing. Maybe it's not just the storm we're afraid of. I finally ventured, my voice trembling like the streetlight flickering outside. Maybe it's what comes after the choices we have to face. His eyes flickered, a moment of understanding shining through the stormy abyss, but it was quickly replaced by shadows of doubt. You don't know what you're getting into. Sometimes, the past catches up faster than a storm can roll in. I was torn. I wanted to say that the past was a part of us, that it shaped our decisions, but it didn't define our worth. Yet deep within, I sensed that the struggle he faced was far larger than me, more complex than I could imagine. The internal battle roared louder than the tempest outside, a maelstrom of guilt and memories playing on repeat in his consciousness. Just tell me what you're afraid of, I urged, my spirit reaching out as if to bridge the distance between us. We can face it together. But I could see it in his eyes, the flickering remnants of a storm brewing within a tempest of fears that were long entrenched, secrets buried deep in foundations I had yet to understand. I don't want to hurt you, he whispered, his honesty slicing through the vulnerability of the moment like a bolt of lightning illuminating a hidden path. And just like that, a wall I never knew existed began to crumble. Hope swelled against my apprehension, and in that instant, there sprang forth a soft warmth within the chaos, a promise to confront whatever lay ahead together. But before I could respond, a sudden low rumble vibrated through the air, shaking the cafe and sending a cascade of debris flying against the door. My heart plummeted as dark shapes materialized from the shadows outside, moving with unnatural speed toward us. Get back, he shouted again, his instinctual reflex pulling me closer to him. I could feel the warmth radiating from his body, juxtaposed against the chilling dread seeping through the glass. Time slowed as the realization dawned. This wasn't simply a storm. It was something they had prepared for, a reckoning brought to our doorsteps. Just then, the old woman stumbled, catching my attention. They're coming for you, she whispered, her voice shaken, eyes wide with fear. You need to leave. Now. In her intense stare, I could see the depths of wisdom intertwined with terror. My breath hitched. Was this all a part of some cosmic plan to unravel the secrets lurking just below the surface? The stakes had risen, and the storm was no longer just about Rhine, it was about survival. Choices made in the face of impending collapse, and oh. The billionaire roared, the protective instinct in him igniting like wildfire. We're not leaving anyone behind. But what if we couldn't save ourselves either? The question rolled around in my mind as shadows crept closer. I had sensed it since the first moment I met him. A dark truth eclipsing the air that surrounded us, the haunting specter of his past clashing violently with hopes for the future. And as we stood together, the world around us unraveled with urgency, leaving us grasping for control. The echo of the storm outside paled in comparison to the tempest raging within our hearts. Would we succumb to the darkness? Or would we find the light flickering just beyond the horizon, revealing the path forward no matter how treacherous it may be? As the shadows loomed closer, I felt the weight of imminent change pressing upon us, a storm with no resolution in sight. The cafe swayed with the tension cloaked in darkness, and every breath felt like a precious treasure snatched away. The sudden crash of the debris against the door had unleashed a tangible fear, one that danced through the air alongside the scent of rain-soaked earth. My heart pounded, each beat resonating with the urgency of our situation. Stay close, the billionaire urged, his voice low and commanding, yet tinted with vulnerability. I nodded, feeling a mixture of adrenaline and something marine, electrifying connection forged in the heat of shared dread. But deep inside, uncertainty wrapped its icy fingers around me, tightening with every moment that passed. The old woman, her frail frame trembling like a leaf caught in the wind, grabbed my wrist with startling strength. Her eyes bore into mine, laden with unspoken words. Sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is face the storm, but sometimes we must also know when to run. Her words burrowed into my mind, echoing off every fear I harbored. Did she sense the doubt I was struggling to bury? Did she know that along with the weight of the storm outside, I felt the culmination of my own decisions closing in on me? The shapes outside transformed, and desperation clung to the air like fog. Figures roamed under the dim streetlights, faces masked, cloaked in shadows. They moved with purpose, marching toward our haven with a determination that sent chills cascading down my spine. I stole a glance at the billionaire, his brows etched with resolve, and something more somber, a hint of memories clawing at his facade. "I am not leaving without you," he said, locking eyes with the old woman as he spoke. "If they're here for me, I won't let it hurt anyone else." The old woman shook her head. "You cannot shield everyone from your past forever. It's time you face them, but you aren't alone anymore." An emotional swell coursed through me, mingled with a burgeoning sense of dread for the reveal of his secrets. What could be so grievous that he felt compelled to protect us, even at the risk of his own safety? I longed to delve into his guarded spirit, to understand the chains that bound him, but the encroaching figures left little room for sentiment. Without warning, a loud crack shattered the moment. Their leader, a tall silhouette, emerged from the shadows, his features obscured as if painted on the canvas of night itself. "You've hidden long enough," his voice boomed cold, sharp, and rumbling with authority. "Come out, and let's settle this." The tension in the cafe skyrocketed as if the very walls had begun to shudder in fear of the confrontation that lay ahead. I felt the billionaire's presence shift beside me, his strength almost a shield against the impending storm of revelations that threatened to pour forth like the raging rain outside. "What do they want?" I asked quietly, my voice barely rising above the chaos in my mind. He turned to me, eyes pleading as if acknowledging the dreadful truth. "My past, it's coming back to haunt me. They're here to make sure I pay for what I did." Each word struck me with painful clarity. "But you know, there's no justification," he interjected sharply, anguish flaring in his expression. "Whatever I've done, I took the path of darkness. I thought I could outrun it. I thought I could just start over." It crushed me to see him so fractured, so caught between remorse and the belief that he deserved whatever punishment awaited him. "You're not alone in this," I urged, feeling a desperate need to reach him beyond the weight of his past. "Everyone has shadows, but that doesn't mean we have to carry them alone." But the words faltered, lost in the haze of his despair. I could see the internal battle waging teetered on the edge of acceptance and defiance. "You don't understand," he whispered, the vulnerability in his admission pouring out like raindrops racing down the windows, each one recounting a different moment of his past. Just then, the old woman stepped forward, her frail fingers steadying the billowing storm within him. "Perhaps the storm is not ours to face alone," she interjected gently. "It's our choice to approach it together, not apart." Before he could respond, the wind howled louder as the figures pressed closer, a stark reminder of the reality outside our sanctuary. My heart raced, grasping for an inkling of hope amid the darkness. With a newfound resolve, I stepped toward the old woman and the billionaire, intertwining my fingers with theirs for strength. Together, we could confront whatever fate awaited us. But then, a new surge of movement shattered the strained momentum. A loud crash echoed as the door splintered under forceful hands, the shadows surging forward like hungry wolves. "We're coming in," the leader growled, his eyes breathing unrelenting malice. The finality of his words struck my heart cold as I realized that our moment of reckoning had arrived. In the blink of an eye, the fragile cocoon of safety we had built shattered, exposing us to the fierce storm that surged forward to reclaim what had been lost. And as we stared into the darkness with an ever-growing uncertainty pulling us down, I was consumed by one haunting thought. Would we rise from the storm together, fused by shared struggles, or would we be swept away, submerged in the tide of reckoning that seemed all too imminent? Time froze, and the chaos exploded as the door swung wide, revealing the terrifying truth we had all been running from. The door crashed open, and the world around us transformed into a cacophony of chaos. In a heartbeat, the shadows that had loomed outside were upon us, menacing figures with faces locked in grim determination, their intentions as clear as the storm that raged outside. "Don't move," the tall leader shouted, his voice slicing through the air, merciless and commanding. The atmosphere tightened, each breath filled with the scent of rain and the unmistakable tang of fear. But amidst the surge of adrenaline, time seemed to stretch for me, a surreal moment where the chaos around us faded into a blur. I glanced at the billionaire, who stood rigid beside me, his jaw clenched and eyes wide, revealing the depths of his agony. It was as if I were witnessing a fragile soul laid bare, exposed to the storm of his past. "Get behind me," he yelled, stepping forward in a protective gesture that twisted my heart. I wanted to urge him to take a step back, to reconsider the weight of his noble sacrifice. This was not just his fight. It was ours, and I refused to let him shoulder it alone. But the intruders didn't give us a chance to regroup. They flooded into the cafe, quick and efficient, moving like shadows between us and the only source of solace in this tempest, the old woman's unwavering resolve. "If there are secrets to uncover, let them be revealed," she called out, her voice steady despite the turmoil. "Face the truth, and perhaps one can find salvation in the acknowledgement of one's sins." "Shut her up," commanded the leader, his eyes narrowed. For a fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of something, a glimmer of hesitation in his demeanor. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, swallowed by the storm swirling around him. The atmosphere crackled with tension, an electric charge teasing at the edges of fear, and in that shaky moment, I felt a flicker of resolve within myself that we can't let this end in violence, I said, stepping forward, startling even myself with the assertiveness in my voice. I had never been one to confront danger head-on, and yet here I was, heart racing, standing alongside the man whose life had intertwined with mine, a thread woven into this fierce tapestry of looming threats. There must be a way to resolve this without bloodshed. A way? The leader scoffed, his pampered features twisted by disdain. "Your friend here thinks he can just turn his back on the past. I'm here to collect what's owed." The billionaire's face paled, the shadows of old regrets etched deeper into his skin, but the glint of anger sparked in his eyes. "I'm not the man you think I am," he replied, his voice low but steady. "I refuse to repay a debt you turned into a vendetta. If I have to face my past, then do it here, now, but not with innocent lives at stake." The gravity of his words hung in the air, met by a stony silence punctuated only by the distant drum of rain against the cafe windows. It felt like a surrender wrapped in defiance. He was willing to bear the burden, to expose the past that haunted him while risking everything to protect what mattered most. Then the old woman spoke again, her voice as soft as a whisper, yet laden with power. "There is a choice before you," she said, looking at the leader. "Choose the path of vengeance, or choose the path of understanding. For forgiveness can be found even in the darkest of places." In that moment, her words seemed to cast a light upon the tension in the room, a flicker of hope that seeped through the darkness. The menacing atmosphere lightened as the chaos slowly receded into a calm that felt surreal. My heart pounded. Would this stubborn pursuit lead to an unexpected breakthrough, or would they press on, hell-bent on retribution? The leader stared at her, uncertainty trickling into his hardened exterior, and for an agonizing moment, I dared to hope that he would reconsider. But then, before I could hold my breath any longer, the ground trembled beneath us as the leader barked an order to his men. "What's owed will be collected." In an instant, the fragile moment shattered again as chaos erupted anew. Our sanctuary turned violently hostile, and the world spun as my heart raced. My fingers instinctively tightened around the billionaire's hand, as if trying to grasp on a fate itself, urging him back. When the onslaught surged forward, the old woman stumbled, caught off balance by the rippling tide of aggression. "No!" I screamed, darting forward. I could feel the billionaire's grip on my hand tighten as he lunged to catch her, but in an instant, she was swept aside by the throng, landing silently against the wall. I gasped, the horror etched on my face as I turned towards the billionaire, who was now lost in the chaos, a powerful hand pulling him into the fray like a raft caught in a whirlpool. "Stay together," I shouted, but the roar of wind and cries of the agitated men drowned out my plea. Shadows loomed around me, the faces of the intruders blending into an indistinguishable mass. I clenched my teeth against the overwhelming dread as the old woman lay on the ground, and the reality of our vulnerability crashed down upon me. Moments blurred together, and it felt as though life had become an agonizingly slow reel. The questions haunted me. Would we emerge unscathed, bound by this moment of shared confrontation? Or was this where everything unraveled? And then, a voice broke through, a soft, haunting whisper in the raging storm. "You never imagined where a mere chance encounter could lead, did you?" It was him, the leader, and his words, laced with uncanny familiarity, sent a shiver down my spine. I locked eyes with him. The truth took root. Deep as the storm itself, this wasn't just a mission of vengeance. There was a deeper connection, an entanglement of fate weaving through the shadows. A revelation awaited just beneath the surface, and as eyes flickered, breaths quickened, I knew the ground beneath us shook, not just from fear, but the weight of secrets that longed to be unearthed. It was merely the beginning of an unimaginable revelation, and even as the storm tossed us about, we stood on the cusp of discovering not only who we were, but all that we had yet to confront. The cafe, once a refuge from the raging storm, transformed into a chaotic battlefield. The old woman's plight weighed heavily upon me. Her frail body crumpled against the wall as shadows closed in, intruders driven by vengeance, their faces twisted by anger and greed. The world stuttered around me, and as if in slow motion, I spotted the billionaire wrestling through the chaos, his determination unwavering. But the once comforting connection between us felt like a fraying rope that I pushed deeper into the fray, adrenaline surging through my veins, battling the urge to retreat. "Stay with me," I called out, hoping that my voice could cut through the fear suffocating us. It felt futile, an echo lost in the clamor of fists and shouts. The air thickened with chaos, surrounding me with the memories of laughter shared over coffee, a mundane moment now shadowed by the dark specter of violence. Amidst the onslaught, I broke free from the grasp of flailing limbs and lunged toward the old woman. "Are you okay?" I knelt beside her, fear complicating my words. She blinked slowly, her eyes shimmering with a wisdom that belied the chaos around us. "It's not too late to change the course," she murmured, even as the storm raged on, a calm center in the eye of the hurricane. I didn't understand her words. Was it hope or denial? But standing up was harder than it seemed. I couldn't drag her from the shadows without risking both of our lives. Suddenly, the billionaire broke free, a fierce lion navigating through the fray, and when his eyes met mine, my world tilted. He was alive, palpable conviction burning through him as the storm encircled us. "Get to safety," he shouted, throwing his weight against one of the intruders. But even amidst his resolve, I could see the weight of self-loathing on his face. He fought like a man seeking redemption. Hope flickered within me, a candle flickering amidst despair. If he could endure, then so could I. "Just hold on," I cried out. "We're getting out together." But as the words left my lips, a monstrous figure intruded, directing chaos directly at the old woman. My heart sank as I understood she had become the target of their fury. I felt the ground crumble beneath me, an unshakable fear seeping deep into my core. I couldn't let them win. Not now. With a surge of adrenaline, I vaulted toward her, spurred by the desperate spirit ignited within me. I managed to shield her with my body, feeling the whoosh of fists cutting through the air just inches away. I was nothing more than a fragile shield between her frailty and the leader's wrath. "Enough." Her voice rose above the thrumming chaos, a beacon born from desperation. "You don't need to do this." The way she spoke, it was as if she could pierce the fury surrounding us with her mere words. Yet the leader's face twisted into a mask of rage. "Why do you insist on prolonging the inevitable?" He spat, spittle flying, the rage consuming him as it consumed the very place that had once been a sanctuary. The past must be reckoned with. The weight of his words crashed into me. Here we stood, teetering on a precipice, a truth teetering between vengeance and understanding. Something inside me flickered, a fragile hope that perhaps we could prompt change, that maybe voices silenced for too long could break through. "Please," I implored, urgency threading through my voice. "You can find another way." But as the shadows wavered, darkness loomed larger still. We were each trapped in a cycle of pain, destined to play our parts in a tragedy we had not chosen. Just when it seemed like the storm would swallow us whole, the unexpected happened. An ally emerged from the shadows. A small miracle amid the storm. One of the intruders faltered, his eye filled with uncertainty, and in that moment, a voice, a distant, familiar voice, pierced through the chaos. "Don't do this." It was a young woman, clutching a makeshift weapon, standing unyieldingly between us and the leader. "This isn't the way." The leader hesitated, the connection between them palpable in the air. shifting the dynamics as if a breeze had swept the curtain aside, revealing new possibilities. "You don't have to follow him," she pleaded, directing intense eyes toward her compatriots. "We're stronger than this. Can't you see it?" Shock coursed through me. Her presence ignited a flicker of hope within the turmoil, a moment where the path diverged. However, the tides of anger and vengeance were not easily diverted. Just as shifts of possibility danced between us, the billionaire caught my eye again, his gaze filled with a blend of determination and despair. "Just hold on to that hope," he mouthed, and in his eyes, I saw a reflection of everything we fought for. But the leader's face darkened once more, anger boiling just beneath the surface. "You think you can sway them with your empty words?" He spat, but doubt had nestled in his voice. He fumed, hands clawed into fists, wrestling with the force of change swirling around him. With the chaos encircling us, nothing felt certain. We stood at the precipice, hearts pounding, caught between the longing for resolution and the risk of total ruin. And as the tension caught its breath, the weight of unspoken truths loomed, the shadows deepening as memories pulled at me, wrapping me in the swirling echoes of choices made and lives intertwined. And then it happened. Just as I thought we might shift toward salvation, a crash echoed through the air. The door swung open violently, flooding the cafe with blinding light. I turned, engulfed in shock and horror, waiting for the climax of this unfolding storm. The storm outside raged on, but suddenly, we weren't alone. Figures flooded the entrance, eyes wide with determination, but I recognized one torn between familiarity and disbelief. My heart plunged. The last person I expected to see, a ghost from my past, stepped into the cacophony unraveling before us, and as their eyes locked onto mine, the weight of emotion surged like a tidal wave, rendering me speechless. In the eye of the storm, secrets were about to unravel, and it felt like everything I understood was about to be turned upside down. The influx of fresh faces brought an electrifying blend of hope and dread. As sunlight spilled across the turmoil, illuminating the cafe's interior, I felt my breath hitch. There, standing defiant amidst the chaos, was my childhood friend, long lost in the labyrinth of memories I had buried deep within myself. Her presence stirred an array of emotions, each one a fierce wave crashing against the shore of my composure. "Mia?" I exclaimed, heart racing as I fought through the disorienting swarm of unfamiliar figures. A wave of nostalgia crashed against me, the warmth of her friendship rising like a beacon through the darkness. But as the intensity of the moment unfolded, uncertainty coiled around my heart. What was she doing here? "Mia, get out. It's not safe," I shouted, urgency threading through each syllable, desperate for her to retreat from this chaos. But she was unmoved, an unbroken spirit wading through uncertainty, the resolve in her eyes like anchors against a stormy sea. "I'm not leaving you like this," she replied fiercely, her voice cutting through the tumult. I heard screams, and I came as fast as I could. The way we once shielded each other from the world was flickering back to life. The years we spent navigating pain and loss had armed her with an unyielding courage. To see her standing before me felt like a tether, binding me back to a time when innocence hadn't been crushed beneath the weight of reality. "Join us," she called to the others behind her, eyes blazing as she gestured for unity. "We can change this. We can fight back together." It wasn't merely a plea. It was a call to arms, awakening the threads of sympathy in those who had been swept into a violence rooted in despair. But the leader's fury was palpable. His wrath boiled over in a visceral reaction. "Back away, all of you," he roared, taking a step forward, eyes blazing with defiance. Chaos tightened around us like a noose, threatening to engulf every flicker of hope that Mia had ignited. MIA's voice, fierce and unwavering, breached the tension. "Listen, this isn't who we are. This can't be the end." She seemed to breathe life into the truth that teetered on the precipice of impossibility. With every word, she painted a picture of solidarity that spiraled into possibilities, pulling strangers together against a common enemy. Something in the crowd shifted. The once belligerent figures exchanged unsure glances, the hesitance of their leader sparking a glimmer of doubt. I could feel a fragile thread binding us. Like a tapestry unraveling at the seams, the commitment to hatred began to fray, and I could sense the moment where it might pivot towards something brighter. "Mia, please," I began to plead again, wanting so desperately to pull her from danger, when suddenly, a caustic hiss cut through the air. A figure, cloaked in darkness, stepped forward, a gun gleaming in their grip like a serpent ready to strike. It was an outsider, an unpredictable variable emerging from the shrouded chaos, and my heart plummeted into an abyss of dread. "Let them go," the figure sneered, pointing the firearm at Mia. My blood ran cold, the frigid reality of the situation pulling me into a spiraling descent of horror. "Or I will end this right here." Time itself seemed to halt. A collective intake of breath echoed around us, a shared anticipation of what this moment could unleash. Memories raced through my mind, the warmth of past summers spent sharing dreams, intertwined with futility and the gravity of today's merciless present. Mia locked eyes with me, determination etched into her features. In the face of impending doom, she took a measured step forward. "We won't cower in fear," she declared. "Our lives can't be dictated by vengeance or pain. There's a better way." The tension hung thick in the air. Even the intruder hesitated, caught off guard by the sheer will radiating from Mia. I could see it in her eyes, a determination that rivaled the storm itself. In a world so rife with despair, she had chosen to be light. "Let's take a leap of faith," I whispered to the billionaire, his gaze restless and shadowed. Like mine, our connection ignited, a fleeting moment where understanding passed between us. Maybe we could reshape destiny, maybe we could change the narrative spun by fear and revenge. Before I could process it, the billionaire sprang forward, a flicker of hope illuminating his features. "Stand down," he commanded, the authority of his voice charging through the remnants of chaos, turning the tide towards our side. But the gunman, cornered and frantic, only tightened his grip, the barrel unwavering. "You think you can sway me?" he spat, panic threading his tone. "You're all just making this worse." Just as I thought the standoff would resolve into violence, something unexpected happened. Mia, ignited with a fiery spirit, stepped closer to the gunman, her vulnerability a stark contrast to his hard exterior. "Are you really willing to risk your life for this?" she asked, sincerity weaving through her voice like a melody. "We're all hurting, but violence isn't the answer. Let's heal together." For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. The fumes of rage began to dissipate, replaced by a flickering glimmer of humanity, a shared understanding in our eyes, connecting fractured pieces of our story inadvertently intertwined. Everyone stepped back, the gunman murmured, uncertainty creeping into his demeanor. I could see the fracture in his resolve. Would he truly surrender to her call? And just as time seemed to bend and conclude in that single heartbeat, a loud thud echoed from the Café Centrancia, police siren wailing in the distance, a cacophony of lights cascading outside like an approaching tide. The urgency shifted from stillness into outright commotion. The revelation sent shockwaves through the crowd. Reinforcements were here, and it could spell salvation or utter devastation. In the chaos that followed, the leader exploded into a frenzy of aggression, his chaos igniting one last wave of turbulence, and it unraveled every ounce of the fragile bond forming between us all. In that moment, as everything spun further out of control, I recognized an unshakable truth. Nothing was resolved, only compounded. Standing at the crossroads of courage and despair, I breathed in the storm raging within and around me, aware that we were teetering on the brink of a decision that would irrevocably shape our fates. The commotion echoed as the intruders scrambled, all eyes darted to the doorway, now saturated with swirling lights and shadows. The next moment would define whether we could rise from the ashes of uncertainty or be consumed completely in the tempest of choices made. The police burst through the entrance, the bright lights illuminating the chaos that had enveloped us in darkness. I felt a surge of hope ricochet through my heart, battling the shadows that had held their grip for far too long. But as the silhouettes of authority stepped forward, a palpable tension filled the air, almost as thick as the rain outside. "Get down. Drop your weapons," a deep voice commanded, piercing the fray as officers redirected their attention to the encroaching shadows. Hands raised in fear, the figures surrounding us faltered, their earlier fervor giving way to uncertainty. The leader, who had exuded such confidence and malice, now appeared diminished, cornered like a rat in a trap. In that fleeting moment, the old woman moved closer to me, her unyielding spirit shimmering amidst the chaos. "You must remember, child," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the clatter of feet and commands. "Change is born from chaos, from knowing when to let go." The words settled deep, resonating with the frayed edges of my heart. I had spent too long fighting the tempest inside, too long convinced that fear was the path forward. Perhaps it was time to embrace the dust and pain of my past, to shed the skin of doubt and fear. Mia, ever the fierce protector, urged the others forward, her spirit lighting up the darkness. "We must not linger," she insisted, eyes flashing with determination. "Together, we can overcome this." I glimpsed the billionaire standing beside her, his face lined with the echoes of his past, wisdom dancing in his stormy eyes. It was as though we were all standing on the brink of transformation, each drawn forward by the urgency of collective healing, a desire for reconciliation amidst a backdrop of chaos. "Shut up, all of you," the leader screamed, panicking as he glanced at the encroaching officers, sweat beading on his brow. In that frantic moment, I could see his world crumbling, the walls closing in around him, choked by the memory of the pain had caused. I wondered if it was these shadows that haunted him, the lost hopes echoing within him as he fought against everything he had become. "Stand down," shouted one of the officers as he surged forward, but even the weight of authority didn't rattle the leader. He backed away, pointing the gun with wild desperation, eyes darting between us and the police. "I don't want any trouble." The tension coiled tighter. It felt as though the storm was threatening to boil over once more. But the old woman stepped between us and the leader. "It's not too late to choose differently," she called out with tremendous fortitude, even amidst the peril. "You hold the power to change the course of your life, to heal instead of hurt." Something shifted in the atmosphere. A stillness seemed to envelop the chaos as he hesitated, my heart pounding. I could see the doubt flickering in his eyes, the realization that perhaps he was not as cornered as he believed. "I don't deserve," he murmured, fear clinging to the edges of his voice. Suddenly, the billionaire stepped forward, resolve replacing the shadows of guilt. "No one truly does, but you have the chance to make amends. Let's face our past together if we must. Find forgiveness." The world around us stilled. Time hung suspended in a fragile balance. The air crackled with quiet anxieties, yet through our collective fear emerged a faint thread woven tightly through shared pain, longing, and hope. "What if I don't want it to end like this?" the leader quietly implored, his defiance waning, revealing a flicker of something profoundly human. "What if I don't know how to change?" "It starts with a choice," I spoke boldly, stepping into the light of the chaos as if my voice could bridge the divide. To choose compassion over fear, to choose connection instead of vengeance, to break the cycle. And then a miracle unfolded. An ember ignited within him. I could see it in the way his shoulders relaxed against the weight of his struggles. "Then you'll choose to listen," he whispered, dropping the gun as if symbolically releasing the burden he had carried for so long. "Perhaps it's time I faced the demons lurking in the shadows." The atmosphere shifted again. Relief surged like the dawning sun, chasing away the dark. The police officers moved in quickly, securing the leader as he stood trembling, tears pooling like silent storms in his eyes. The momentum within us built stronger. The shadows of our pasts began to unfurl, weaving into a better future intertwined with understanding. As Mia reached for me, pulling me into a hug, I felt the connection deepening, rooted in shared sacrifice. The old woman smiled, her eyes gleaming with acceptance, and the billionaire standing strong, enveloped by the radiance of vulnerability, looked at the now subdued leader, carrying the weight of 1,000 untold stories. "That we all deserve a second chance," he murmured, his voice echoing with resonance. "Let's rewrite our narratives together." As the storm outside began to ebb, the sun filtered through the graffitied cafe windows, illuminating everything with golden light. It felt like hope, shining through the darker promise of tomorrow. Taking a deep breath, I realized the truth that had anchored me throughout this journey. The past no longer defined us. We could rise above the chaos, transform pain into a tapestry of healing, and rewrite our stories. And in that moment, surrounded by the people who had become my anchor, I whispered. Together, we will become more than our shadows. Because sometimes, the light found at the end of the storm comes from the unconditional love we choose to share.